All right. Okay, so supposedly we're recording this, so we'll keep any jokes clean and any remarks not offensive. So our objective is, in this program, let's just review the program quickly, pretty simplistic. I renamed some of these windows. There's a control window where you can put a name, a button, and a slider. The slider you can use to change the size of the text. And the button pops another window, but only for 3 seconds. So this works as long as it's there. 3 seconds later, the window goes away. That's okay, but what if we actually had a whole bunch of people who we wanted to greet and we didn't want to type their names in? So what might be a way of doing that? Well, we're going to have to modify our interface. If the premise is that, that we're going to greet a whole bunch of people off of a list, then that text box has no reason to be there, and the greet button really kind of becomes a start button. So let's do that first, and then we'll continue on. So we're going to take the text box in window 1, remove it. And I think I'll blank this one out here. Change this to start. Okay, so TBX name no longer exists. And something's going to happen over here, but we're not sure what yet. But we'll find out. So why don't we create a global list? And it will be called our guest list. And making a list is real easy. We just put things comma separated into here. And for some reason, I chose Larry, Curly, and Mo. Okay. All right. So that is global. And one of the things that we haven't talked about lists yet, and this actually comes under the topic of why we like lists. If you look at the cheat sheet, you're going to find all kinds of fun things to do with lists. One of them we know, that's a pen. We've used that a lot. One of the things we haven't used yet is pop. Any guess about what pop does to a list? What does that mean? It pops off. It pops one element off the list. It returns it and removes it. And if you think of that idea of returning and removing, that's going to be real important when we greet somebody, because we want to greet everybody once. And ultimately, we need to stop when we've greeted everybody. So what we're going to do to the list is take the guest list and pop is a function that can be applied to that list objects. And what it takes is an index. So if you put no index there, it pops off the bottom of the list. I'm not sure I could explain why they chose to do that, but that's what they chose to do. Pops off the bottom of the list. Well, we want to greet these people in order, so we want to pop off the top of the list. And everything on the list has an index, so we can just put 0 in there, and it will be fine. And we don't want to do this anymore because we don't want to shut the greeting off. So we'll take that out of there. What we do need to do, I guess I'll take this out of here and maybe put it back later. Okay. What we do need to do is we need to do this for as many items as we have on the list. And there's something that I haven't told you about lists. And actually, I've not told you the same thing about several other things like variables. Does a list have a Boolean value? Does that make sense? Can a list be true or false? Say again? If there are elements in the list is? Yes. If there are no elements in the list, not an element in the list is false. So if you figured that out, you might figure out that a variable who's set equal to none is also false. A variable that has something in it other than none is also true. So we can write something like this and do well with it. If greeting list okay. This takes advantage of the fact that when we pop things off of the list gets shorter. So perhaps what we should be doing here is printing the list. Maybe we'll do that here, just so we can see what happens. Value when is not used. That's true. Okay, so take that out. Okay. I don't believe this is going to work very well, but let's give it a try and see what happens. So there's our start. When we hit start, we're kind of missing some things. Here's our list, but nothing good happened, I believe, because we've hidden the window. So let's not do that and see if we're any happier. Okay, there's our greeting window. We hit start, and it says Larry. Why does it say Larry? That's the start of our list. So what's not happening here is we're not calling this function except for the first time. So we're not really making any progress except creating the one person. So that means what we want to do here is we want something that actually calls this thing multiple times. And we know that if we put a sleep in the program, or at least those of you who haven't learned that yet will learn it soon, when you put a sleep into a guizero program, you screw it up, right? It's a hard lesson, but that's the lesson. So somebody, I think it might have been Victor, asked me over the weekend, well, if you can't use sleep, what can you use? And the answer was you can either use .repeat or .after. So that's our choices. So what we really want to have this thing do is we really want to run this as many times as we need to get this to become false, which means the list will have been consumed. Okay. There's something I want to throw in here, but I'm not sure when I want to throw it in. So I'll just punt for the moment. So the start button, I'm going to define a new function called start. Because I want to. And here I can kind of put the idea back. I can start with the window hidden. That's fine. When I hit the start button, what do I have to do? I have to show the window, and that's window 2. Okay. Except it doesn't know about window 2. So that means I should probably pass that as an argument. And what did we also pass here? We passed the text for the greeting. Yeah, we're gonna need that too. So we're gonna show the window, and we're gonna call, well, okay, we're gonna show the window. Now what I need to do in starting this is we're revisiting the greeting program. Instead of greeting people by typing something in, we're going to greet the people off of the list. That's what hopefully is going on here. So what we need to do now is we need to repeatedly call the greet function. And we're going to do that with a repeat, which as far as I can see can be applied to any old widget that's around. It doesn't matter what you attach it to, but it's got to be attached to a widget. So we're going to put the number of seconds, number of milliseconds, that's about 3,000, and we're going to put the name of the function that we want to call, which is greet, and we're going to pass to greet. We pass args this way, I believe so. I'll find out. And never, ever, ever put parentheses when you're trying to put a handler in there. The proper format is the name of the function, not the function with parentheses. This registers it as an event handler. Parentheses actually registers it. That actually calls the function, not what we want to have happen. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. The start button is going to show the window, and it's going to repeat this. And in our greet function, we're going to print things out. And we might as well be brave and see what happens. So there's our start. And we wait 3 seconds, and it blows up. Because this does not need win2, it just needs the greeting. Okay, so far, not so good. Oh, there's Larry. There's Curly. There's Mo. There's an empty list. I'm looking down at the bottom here. So what happened? Yeah, so it popped off the top of the list, and successfully stopped doing it here. Well, yes, no, sort of, kind of. It left Mo up here. Extend what window? This window? I could, but that's not what I'm doing. There's a text field here, and every 3 seconds I'm putting something in the text field. So that's getting there. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting there.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you call the members of the list at different times?
What do you mean?
Because it's all at 3,000 milliseconds.
Yep.
So each one are called at the exact same time, but am I able to call like the first item at 2,000 milliseconds instead of 3,000, and then the second one at 3,000, and the fourth one or the third one at 4,000 milliseconds?
Okay. So yeah, to do that, you're going to need a separate list.
Okay.
And that list would be a list of time delays.
Gotcha.
And what you would need to do here is you need to go down both of those lists at the same time. And well, that's a little, it's going to be tricky, but I think you can do it. So this somehow or other would have to be a variable, not a constant. And there's no problem doing that, but quite frankly, I'm not prepared quite to go down that road right now.
Oh, okay.
But
no
yeah.
worries. It's just something that popped in my head.
Okay, and that's good. So the other problem we have here, well, we got a couple of problems, actually. Let's go back here and decide we want to do this again. Okay, so we do it again. We still have Mo over there, and we also have nothing on this list. Why don't we have anything on the list? Because we consumed them all. So the list isn't there anymore. So there are a couple of problems. Let's see what we can do. There. So globally, we just built the list, comma-separated strings, and we're going down that list. And we also said that if guest list will be true if there's elements on the list. If there's no elements on the list, that would be false. So this will stop greeting people there. So maybe what we can do here is provide some else conditions. And if the list is empty, I'm going to suggest we're going to do txt greet.clear. So we get the last person off the list. We're going to do a hide the window. Oh, now we need win2, don't we? Win2.hide. And there's something else that I really should do. And this, frankly, drove me crazy over the weekend until I figured out I should be doing it. And that is, now that I'm done, I want to cancel the event handler. I don't want it triggering over and over again with nothing in there. So since we attach the event handler to win2, what we do is we say win2.cancel, and we have to have the name of the function that we're canceling, which would be greet. So this will cancel the event that was attached over here. Let's see how we're doing. I'm not crazy about this 3-second delay with nobody's name up there. So maybe that's the next thing we'll fix. Okay, so Mo stays up there for the required amount of time. The list is empty, the window goes away, and all is good. Now I want to do this over again for some reason. And when I hit that, nothing's happening because the list is already empty. So if I really wanted to be able to go back and reuse the list, then I better not consume it, right? Because once I consume it, I've lost everything. So my answer to that was, let me create another list called the greeting list. Which can start out empty. What I want to call here is the greeting list. And what I want to do when I start is I want to take the greeting list and find another fun function that we have, which is called extend. And what I extend, if you look up here, is something that is iterable. And something that is iterable includes things like lists and other things. So that really means add some kind of a thing to the list. And what I'm going to add is the guest list. So this will start out empty. When I hit start, I will plug the guest list into here by extending it. Through the program, I will consume greeting underscore list. And when it's gone, that's fine. The window goes away. When I hit start again, it should restore that. So let's see. Oh, we didn't fix the other problem about that 3 second delay. So there's Larry. Watch. That's not right. Oh, I'm printing the wrong thing. I'm printing the other list. Pop from empty list. Yes. Okay. All right. So this is not guest list. This is greeting list that we're checking. That's the list that's going to be consumed. Python says quite correctly, it's an index error. You're trying to pop from an empty list, and I can't do that. Let's solve the problem of that 3 second delay by calling the welcome function when we start. Okay, so that's going to be greet. Bless you. We're calling the greet function when we start. And we have to pass to it when to, and we have to pass to it greeting. Okay, so if we call it once, we should get Larry immediately and then proceed through the others. Could not cancel function that doesn't exist or has already been run. That's not good. So we did that. We got to extend the list first. There. Put it here. And we want to see the list being consumed, so we'll do greeting list. Let's try again. There's Larry. First up off the top. There's Curly. There's Mo. It's empty. It goes away. So we've kind of achieved our goal through a couple of tricks. We actually have two lists. We have our permanent. Oh, I didn't run it again. Trust me, it'll work if I run it again. We'll have another chance to run it. We have a guest list that's not going to be changed, and a greeting list that we are going to consume with a pop function. And when we hit start, we're going to put our guest list into what will be the empty greeting list. Launch our greet function once so it comes up immediately, and then start callback function based on a timer to execute this, which will happen as many times, will happen repeatedly until this is empty. So of course, one advantage to the list idea is that if we want to invite or uninvite anybody, we don't have to worry about indices and counting and stuff like that. We just kind of add them on over here, and it's fine. Okay, take a deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Ready? I want to observe that the idea of calling these functions outside of main gets me into, that's what gets me into the whole business about things being global and having to pass them. And it's kind of somewhat tedious. So has anybody ever intimated that we couldn't have a function inside of a function? It's just containers, right? So what would happen if we had a function inside of a function? That means that anything in the outer function that's defined will automatically be known to anything inside. So there's an advantage. Question that might come up pretty quickly is, why don't we do this all the time? Well, one reason not to do it all the time is that maybe these functions are called by multiple functions and we would never include them in each of them. The other argument that's less formal is that if this was really big, or there was a ton of these, or they were really big, we'd kind of be losing the scope of it. What do we usually do with functions? I mean, production usually. We usually put them in separate files, and that blows that concept of embedding them in the main function away. But let's give it a try and see what happens if we take all of these functions. So we're going to take them out of here. We're going to put them in here. And we're going to start undoing the globals that I don't think we need anymore. Yep, in my version, there are no globals. Let me just find where the list ended up. Okay. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to put it in place of that global statement because I don't think I need it anymore. Text greet, well, this just was set equal to none to get it defined globally. So that's out. And my start function no longer needs to know about win2 because win2 is defined down here. Well, I'll take both of these out of here. Okay. So this is greet. How did it go from greeting to greet? I missed something. Oh no, that's actually the text object. So I think both of these can go out of here. We're just going to call the greet function. We're going to claim, or at least we're going to find out if we don't need these arguments. And this value over here is actually a widget, txt underscore greet. And we're back to a green check mark. And let's see if we've broken anything. Not yet. Now we've broken something. Start. And start. Oh, when we call it. More simplifications, right? We claim we don't need any arguments anymore. And that one doesn't have any arguments. Start. Larry. Curly. Mo. Bob. And we're done. Call it again. Good point. Larry. So the principle that you're expressing is when you make a change, go back and check everything all over again, lest you screwed something up in the changes that you made. Good point. All right, so we're pretty happy, and we've got a new trick, but it has to be used with caution. So the trick is if our functions are simple, not too long, if they're not needed someplace else, embed them inside of your main function and pretty much do away with the globals. So in my mind, this follows the first principle. Who remembers what happened last time when we said import this and ran the program? We got Tim Peters' 19 reasons, 19 ways of being Zen when dealing with Python. And the first thing that he told us was beautiful is better than ugly. And I think we've made some progress in that direction with this program. I think we've made it more beautiful. And if you haven't read through these, they're certainly worth a read. So if you need to be reminded, just do import this at the top of your program. As far as I know, it works with all versions of Python. All right. So any questions about what we've done, why we've done it, why you may or may not want to do it that way in the future, why lists are our friends, because we can just put things into lists and then consume them by popping. Questions? All right, let me make a comment before we pull the plug on this section. I guess I really need a whiteboard. So text. Okay. If I pop something off the top of a list, that has a certain meaning, and actually an acronym that's applied to it, and it's called FIFO. Anybody know the acronym FIFO? It's clean, no? Okay, FIFO stands for first in, first out. And this usually comes up in talking about either queues, lists of things, inventory. If I'm selling milk in the store, is first in, first out an intelligent way to sell it? Right. As opposed to doing a pop off the end of a list, and that's called a LIFO, and that's last in, first out. List? No. Last in, first out. So the way they stack milk in the store is they have these chutes that are fed from the back. You put the milk into there, the new ones end up at the back, the old ones end up at the front, and you form a first in, first out list, which really, really helps. So if you see those apply to things like inventories or any kind of a queue where things are lined up, think about whether or not you want to deal with them as a FIFO or a LIFO kind of a thing. Okay, so once more, questions?